At the beginning of the 16th century, in a world full of political schemes and endless wars, a man sat down to write something that would shake the foundations of power forever. That man was Niccolo Machiavelli. His book, The Prince, became one of the most controversial and enduring works in history. In it, Machiavelli broke away from the moral traditions of his time. He challenged the idea that kindness and power naturally go hand in hand. Instead, he argued something uncomfortable but true. To succeed in politics and in life, sometimes you must be clever, pragmatic, and, in certain moments, even strategically ruthless. But what does that have to do with good people? Why is it that so many kind-hearted individuals end up being crushed in competitive environments? Why do those who follow the rules, who are gentle and trusting, often face more obstacles than those who manipulate and control? The answer may lie in the lessons Machiavelli left behind. While he's often seen as cold or calculating, he was actually a sharp observer of human nature. He understood something many still ignore. Even the kindest people need to understand the rules of the game if they want to survive and thrive. In this series, we'll explore 4 essential lessons from Machiavelli that good people can use to walk through life with greater strength, wisdom, and resilience. We'll draw from classic literature, philosophy, psychology, and real-world insights. This isn't about abandoning kindness, it's about protecting it. Machiavelli is not a villain to be feared, he's a teacher to be understood. Machiavelli believed the first step for anyone, especially good people, to succeed is to understand human nature as it truly is. In The Prince, he explains that people are not born purely good or evil. We are shaped by circumstances, interests, and needs. He famously wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, liars and deceivers, fearful of danger and greedy for gain." At first glance, this sounds dark, but Machiavelli wasn't saying everyone chooses to be this way. He saw it as a reflection of how society and politics shape people. Understanding this uncomfortable reality is crucial, not to become cynical, but to avoid being blindsided. For Machiavelli, kindness is not an absolute virtue. It's a tool, something to be used wisely. In a world where people's intentions are often selfish, blind innocence can be a dangerous weakness. One of his most striking lines makes this painfully clear. A man who wants to act entirely up to his professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him among so much that is evil. This isn't a call to abandon goodness, it's a reminder to ground it in reality. Good people need to understand the world as it is, not just as it should be. One powerful example comes from the character Jean Valjean in Les Miserables by Hugo. Jean is a kind and noble man, but he learns quickly that kindness alone is not enough in a harsh world. To protect the people he loves and to do good, he sometimes has to act strategically, even bend the rules. His journey is a lesson in how pure goodness can only survive when it learns to adapt to reality. Modern psychology supports Machiavelli's insight. One important concept is theory of mind, the ability to understand other people's thoughts, feelings, and intentions. Research shows that people who are extremely trusting or empathetic often ignore early warning signs of manipulation. Psychologist Jennifer Freyd developed the betrayal trauma theory, showing how those who trust too easily can overlook small red flags until it's too late. This aligns perfectly with Machiavelli's advice. Learn to read between the lines. Don't just listen to words, watch actions. Neuroscience adds another layer. Acts of generosity trigger the brain's reward circuits, making us feel good, but that same reward can lead us to give too much, too fast, ignoring the risks. This doesn't mean generosity is bad, it means kindness needs boundaries. Imagine someone at work who always offers to help colleagues. At first, it seems noble, but over time, they notice they rarely receive the same support in return. This is a common scenario in competitive environments. Machiavelli would say, observe patterns. Don't keep giving endlessly to those who take without giving back. A practical approach is something psychologists call conditional generosity. This means you give, but with awareness, investing your energy in people who reciprocate, not in those who exploit. Philosopher Nietzsche also offered a sharp insight about goodness. In Beyond Good and Evil, he wrote, "Kindness that cannot defend itself is weakness disguised as virtue." Nietzsche wasn't dismissing kindness, he was pointing out what Machiavelli already knew. Goodness without strength is fragile. If you can't protect your kindness, the world will use it against you. To truly thrive, good people must see human nature clearly. People can be loyal, but they can also be selfish. They can love you, but they can also betray you when their interests shift. Recognizing this doesn't make you bitter, it makes you prepared. Think of it like learning the rules of a complex game. If you refuse to learn the rules because they feel unfair, you'll keep losing. But if you understand the game, you can play it on your terms. You can protect your values and your power. Machiavelli wasn't encouraging cruelty for cruelty's sake. He was showing that a kind heart without strategic awareness is an easy target. And in a world where power dynamics are everywhere, from offices to families, from friendships to politics, awareness isn't optional. It's survival. In today's world, good people often believe that doing the right thing will automatically be rewarded. But life isn't fair by design. People aren't always grateful. Systems don't always value sincerity. And while that's harsh, understanding it is liberating. Once you see human nature for what it is, you stop expecting perfection from others. You stop setting yourself up for unnecessary pain. And you start playing smart, not just nice. Machiavelli's first lesson isn't about becoming manipulative, it's about becoming aware. Awareness turns vulnerability into strength. Machiavelli's second great lesson is about perception. In The Prince, he explains that how people see you often matters more than who you really are. He wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel." What he meant is simple but powerful. Most people don't look beyond appearances. They believe what they see before they ever understand the truth. For good people, this can be uncomfortable because they often rely on honesty and transparency. They believe their actions will speak for themselves. But the world doesn't always work that way. Sometimes how others perceive you shapes their reality more than your actual character. Machiavelli wasn't encouraging lies or deceit, he was revealing a truth. Perception is a tool. If you don't learn to manage it, others will shape it for you. Studies in modern psychology support this. Research shows that people form their first impression of someone in a fraction of a second. In one study published in Psychological Science, people formed judgments of competence after looking at a stranger's face for just 100 milliseconds. That snap judgment can influence decisions about trust, leadership, and even respect. For good people who hope that kindness alone will win people over, this can be a painful realization. Appearance, posture, tone of voice, the way you carry yourself, these small details can decide how seriously people take you before you say a single word. Machiavelli understood this long before science proved it. One experiment by Amy Cuddy, a professor at Harvard Business School, showed that people who use expansive, confident body language are perceived as more powerful and capable. Even more striking, these postures don't just change how others see you, they change how you feel. People who appear strong begin to act strong. That's why Machiavelli insisted that those who wish to survive and thrive must learn to shape how they are perceived. A classic example of the power of appearances comes from Hamlet by William Shakespeare. In the play, King Claudius projects the image of a just and responsible ruler. He maintains this image even though he committed a terrible crime to seize the throne. His carefully constructed facade keeps him in power, at least for a time. On the other hand, Hamlet, who is far more intelligent and complex, appears uncertain and fragile to others. His hesitation and erratic behavior make people underestimate him. In a world where appearances shape reality, perception often outweighs substance. Machiavelli understood that power does not belong to the one who is good, but to the one who is seen as strong. Nietzsche also spoke about this idea in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, writing, "What has value in itself needs no applause, but the world believes more in the glow than in the essence." In other words, people are often drawn to the surface of things. They respect what they can see. Even if something is pure and valuable beneath, it can be ignored if it doesn't shine on the outside. This is not about faking who you are. It's about aligning how others see you with who you truly are, so that your value is not buried under silence or softness. In everyday life, the power of appearance is everywhere. Think of job interviews. Two people can have the same skills, but the one who walks in with confidence, dresses sharply, and speaks clearly often gets the job. Or think of negotiations. A person who projects authority is taken more seriously, even if they say the exact same words as someone who doesn't. Psychologist Edward Thorndike called this the halo effect. When people see one positive trait, like attractiveness, confidence, or charm, they automatically assume other positive traits, like intelligence or trustworthiness. A leader who appears confident is often perceived as more competent, even without proof. Good people can use this to their advantage without compromising their integrity. If you are kind but appear weak, people may ignore your voice. But if you are kind and appear strong, people are more likely to listen, respect, and follow you. Machiavelli believed that failing to understand this truth is like walking into battle unarmed. Power is often not about being the strongest, but about being seen as strong. To navigate a world that often judges before understanding, you must learn to communicate not only with words, but with presence. This means standing tall, speaking with calm authority, and dressing in a way that reflects self-respect. This doesn't require pretending to be someone else. It requires revealing your strength before others overlook it. Good people often make the mistake of thinking, my actions will speak for themselves. But actions don't speak unless people are watching and listening. You must first earn their attention. And appearance is the first language they understand. It's like knocking on the door of their perception so your real self can be heard. Imagine two scenarios. In the first, a person speaks softly, avoids eye contact, and looks unsure. In the second, the same person straightens their posture, speaks with clarity, and looks others in the eye. Their message hasn't changed, but its impact has. The second version commands more respect. People will believe in you more if you look like someone who believes in yourself. Machiavelli saw perception as armor. It doesn't replace your core values, but it protects them. It allows your goodness to be heard and taken seriously in a world where appearances are currency. If you fail to shape how the world sees you, it will decide for itself, and it might not be in your favor. Good people need to learn that being strong in the eyes of others isn't vanity. It's survival. It's the bridge that allows kindness to exist without being crushed. This is why understanding the power of appearance is not about becoming manipulative. It's about being seen clearly and respected fairly. When you can align your image with your true value, your kindness no longer whispers, it speaks with power. Machiavelli understood that the world listens to those who project strength. And when kindness wears strength as armor, it becomes unstoppable. Machiavelli's third lesson is about the reality of human nature. In The Prince, he wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous." He did not say this out of bitterness, but out of observation. He understood a truth that many good people struggle to accept. Most people act in their own self-interest first. They can love you today and betray you tomorrow if it benefits them. They may praise your goodness when it serves them, and abandon it when it does not. For good people, this truth feels harsh, even cynical. But Machiavelli's point was not to condemn humanity. It was to warn anyone who walks blindly in a world that is not kind by default. Modern psychology supports this idea. Behavioral experiments in economics and social science have shown that people often act cooperatively only when it aligns with their personal benefit. The moment their interests shift, their loyalty can vanish. Machiavelli believed that leaders and individuals must understand this if they are to protect themselves. Goodness without awareness becomes a vulnerability. One famous example of this reality is the story of Julius Caesar. He trusted those around him, especially Marcus Junius Brutus, believing that loyalty and friendship would hold. But in the end, even Brutus turned against him. Caesar's downfall was not caused by a lack of power, but by a failure to understand human nature. He believed loyalty was permanent. Machiavelli would have warned him otherwise. In everyday life, this same pattern plays out quietly. People may support you when they need you, admire you when it benefits their image, or claim loyalty when there's no cost. But when your presence no longer serves them, many will simply walk away, not out of evil, but out of self-preservation. This is why Machiavelli advised that trust should be measured, not blind. He wrote that a wise person must assume that all men are wicked and will act wickedly if given the chance. This doesn't mean living in constant suspicion. It means understanding that trust should be earned, not given freely to everyone. Good people often make the mistake of projecting their own goodness onto others. They believe others feel and think the same way they do. But Machiavelli understood something different. Human nature is layered. People are capable of kindness, but also betrayal. They can be generous, but also selfish. And when survival or self-interest is at stake, the latter often wins. The philosopher Thomas Hobbes shared a similar view in Leviathan, describing life as solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short, without order or power to restrain human impulses. He believed that self-interest is the default state of human beings. History offers endless examples of this. Empires fall not because their enemies were always stronger, but because those within betrayed them for personal gain. Trusting everyone is not a virtue, it's a risk. Even in personal relationships, this truth appears subtly. A friend may disappear when you have nothing to offer. A partner may leave when the illusion of benefit fades. A colleague may smile while waiting for an opportunity to outmaneuver you. These realities are uncomfortable, but ignoring them does not make them disappear. Machiavelli believed that understanding the darker side of human nature does not make you cruel. It makes you prepared. It allows you to protect yourself without becoming paranoid. It allows you to see clearly without being blinded by wishful thinking. Psychologist Robert Cialdini in Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, explained how people's decisions are often driven by self-interest, even when they seem altruistic on the surface. Acts of generosity can be strategic, loyalty can be temporary, and alliances can be fragile. Understanding this gives you strength. It teaches you to build relationships based on mutual respect, not blind faith. Good people often feel betrayed because they expected others to act as they would. Machiavelli's wisdom removes this illusion. He believed that expecting loyalty without understanding human motives is like building a house on sand. It may stand for a while, but it will eventually crumble. True power comes from clarity, not naivete. This doesn't mean becoming bitter or cold. It means recognizing that kindness must be paired with strength and awareness. It means giving trust like a key, not like an open door. Those who prove themselves can earn it. Those who don't get access. Machiavelli understood that the world is not filled with pure villains or pure saints. It is filled with people, complex, flawed, and self-interested. Accepting this doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. When you stop expecting the world to mirror your goodness, you stop being wounded by its nature. You start moving through it with clarity. This is why Machiavelli's lessons remain timeless. Good people do not need to become ruthless. They need to stop being blind. They must see the world as it is, not as they wish it to be. When kindness is built on awareness, it cannot be easily broken. It becomes powerful, unshakable, and free from illusions. That is the strength Machiavelli wanted people to have, not the cruelty of the powerful, but the clarity of the wise. Machiavelli's fourth lesson is about power itself, how it is gained, maintained, and lost. In The Prince, he famously wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." This single line has been misunderstood for centuries. It was not a call to cruelty. It was a statement about control and survival in a world where love is fickle, but fear, when managed wisely, commands stability. Machiavelli saw that love depends on others' emotions, and emotions change. Fear, however, depends on your actions and the perception you create. It is more stable, more predictable. People may love you today and abandon you tomorrow, but if they respect and fear the consequences of betrayal, they are less likely to turn against you. Power is not about brutality. It is about understanding human behavior and creating an environment where your position cannot be easily challenged. For good people, this idea feels uncomfortable. They want to be liked, to inspire loyalty through goodness. But Machiavelli understood that leadership built only on being liked is fragile. When storms come, affection disappears. Only strength remains. A classic example of this idea can be seen in Alexander the Great. He inspired deep loyalty among his soldiers through charisma and respect, but he also commanded discipline and consequences. His power rested on both love and fear. If it had been only love, his empire would have crumbled at the first sign of weakness. Machiavelli argued that power without boundaries invites chaos. Love without respect is ignored. Fear without cruelty is a tool. It creates order. He warned that relying on love alone leaves one vulnerable to betrayal, and relying on fear alone breeds rebellion. The balance between the two is where true power lies. Modern research in leadership psychology mirrors this idea. Studies show that leaders who are both warm and competent are trusted the most. But when forced to choose, competence outweighs warmth in maintaining authority. People follow those they respect, even when they don't fully like them. Respect is the backbone of power. Fear in Machiavelli's sense is not about terror. It's about ensuring people understand that actions have consequences. It's about setting boundaries so clear that others know where the line is and what happens when it's crossed. A good person who never enforces boundaries invites exploitation. A good person who does enforces respect. Machiavelli also observed how quickly power can be lost when leaders try too hard to please everyone. A ruler who bends to every demand appears weak, and weakness attracts opportunists. When people sense a lack of strength, they test the limits, and the structure begins to crumble. This is true in kingdoms, companies, families, and even personal relationships. The philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli understood that power is not something given. It is something projected and defended. When you appear strong, even your enemies hesitate. When you appear weak, even your friends doubt. That is the nature of power. A classic example is Julius Caesar. Though loved by the people, he underestimated the fear he created in the Senate. They plotted against him not because he lacked power, but because they believed they could exploit his trust. If Caesar had balanced his popularity with calculated control, history might have been different. This lesson applies to everyday life as well. A leader in the workplace who tries to be liked by everyone ends up being disrespected. A person who never says no ends up drained. A parent who fears setting limits loses authority. People respect those who enforce boundaries. Fear, in its proper form, is structure. It's the quiet understanding that disrespect will not be tolerated. Machiavelli was not asking people to become tyrants. He was asking them to stop being fragile, to understand that kindness must be defended, not offered without strength. Love without power is soft. Power without love is cold. The balance is what makes influence enduring. Psychologist Robert Cialdini describes this dynamic through authority bias. People naturally follow those they perceive as strong and competent. This doesn't require cruelty. It requires clarity. A person who stands firm in their values, speaks with conviction, and enforces their boundaries will command respect even from those who don't fully agree with them. Machiavelli also warned about appearing too cruel or too kind. Excess cruelty breeds hatred, which is dangerous. Excess kindness invites betrayal. The middle ground is precise control, being firm, fair, and unwavering. That's why he admired rulers who maintained a strong image while keeping their cruelty measured and their generosity strategic. In essence, Machiavelli's lesson is simple. Don't chase love, command respect. Don't fear being firm, fear being weak. In a world where power shapes relationships, kindness without strength gets crushed. When good people learn to wear strength like armor, their kindness no longer bends at every blow. It stands unshaken. Power is not about hurting others. It is about ensuring you cannot be easily hurt. This is the difference between being liked and being respected. One fades, the other endures.
Machiavelli's fifth lesson is about illusion and control. In The Prince, he wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." This is one of his most revealing statements. He understood that power does not just come from what you do, but from the image you build. Appearances are often more powerful than truth, because most people only look at the surface. They do not dig deeper. This is why the most effective leaders in history have always mastered the art of illusion. They understood that controlling perception is often more important than controlling reality. Machiavelli called this appearing virtuous. You don't always have to be merciful, honest, or generous, but you must look like you are. People are drawn to appearances of strength, kindness, justice, and certainty. They don't always care whether these qualities are fully real as long as they can see and believe them. It's not deception, it's strategy. A king may not always be merciful, but if he appears merciful, his people love him. A ruler may not always be honest, but if he appears honest, his subjects trust him. The illusion stabilizes power. The same applies in everyday life. People respond not to the raw truth of who you are, but to the version of you they perceive. This is why someone less skilled can rise higher than someone more capable, because they project confidence, certainty, and control. Machiavelli saw this long before modern psychology gave it names. One powerful modern example is impression management, a concept studied extensively in social psychology. Research shows that people form lasting opinions based on initial perceptions and rarely question them deeply afterward. Appearances create narratives, and narratives shape power. One of the best examples in history is Napoleon Bonaparte. He was a master of controlling his public image. Even when his armies were weakened, he projected strength. He crafted symbols, speeches, and gestures that made him look larger than life. People believed the image, and the image gave him power even when the reality behind it wavered. Machiavelli understood this mechanism. He knew that people prefer comforting illusions over uncomfortable truths. They want to believe in strength, in justice, in heroes. Those who learn to embody this image, even partially, gain control. Those who insist on being fully transparent often lose it, because raw truth is too complex for most to accept. In relationships, careers, or politics, the one who controls the narrative controls the outcome. A simple example is a workplace. One person may be highly competent but quiet and uncertain. Another may be moderately competent but confident and articulate. The second person is often promoted faster, trusted more, and followed more readily. Why? Because people follow appearances of strength, not the hidden substance they can't see. Machiavelli was not telling people to lie endlessly. He was showing them that image is power. If you do not craft your image, the world will craft one for you, and it may not be in your favor. That is how reputations are made and destroyed. Perception is not neutral. It either works for you or against you. This is why he advised rulers to appear virtuous, even when their strategies required cruelty or deception. If people believe you are good, they will forgive your flaws. If they believe you are bad, they will doubt even your good deeds. Modern cognitive science calls this confirmation bias. People interpret new information in a way that supports their initial impression. Once an image is set, it becomes a filter through which everything else is judged. Good people often neglect this. They believe that if they are honest and kind, the world will naturally see it. But Machiavelli knew that the world doesn't see truth clearly. It sees what it wants to see, and it listens to whoever controls the story. He also understood the danger of appearing too transparent. If you show your entire hand, you give others power over you. Mystery, carefully crafted, creates an aura of strength. People respect what they cannot fully understand. They project their own assumptions onto the unknown. That's why he valued appearance over pure truth. He didn't worship lies, he understood their utility. Even philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche echoed this idea. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche wrote, "Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed." Power belongs to those who understand this, not those who ignore it. The lesson for good people is clear. Your image is not a superficial accessory. It's a weapon, a shield, and a strategy. If you appear weak, your strength will be ignored. If you appear strong, your weaknesses will be forgiven. If you appear kind, your harsh decisions will be softened. If you appear cruel, even your kindness will be doubted. Machiavelli wanted people to understand that illusion, when mastered, is not manipulation, it's survival. It allows your truth to exist in a world that runs on perception. So build your image carefully. Speak less than you know. Show only what strengthens your position. Let people see the version of you that commands respect and loyalty. Truth without power gets silenced, but truth wrapped in a powerful image can move the world. Machiavelli's sixth lesson is about understanding loyalty and betrayal. In The Prince, he observed, "Men are less hesitant to harm someone who makes himself loved than someone who makes himself feared." This may sound harsh, but it reveals a deep insight into human nature. Loyalty built on affection is fragile. But loyalty built on respect and strategic bonds is far harder to break. People are loyal as long as it benefits them. When circumstances change, love can vanish overnight. But respect, fear, and strategic necessity endure longer. Machiavelli understood that depending entirely on people's goodness is a dangerous gamble. Human loyalty is conditional, not absolute. That doesn't mean everyone is evil. It means most act according to self-interest, especially when their comfort, survival, or ambitions are at stake. History proves this. Alliances collapse when they no longer serve mutual interests. Friendships fracture under pressure. Followers turn against their leaders when the winds shift. Machiavelli wanted people to accept this truth, not to become paranoid, but to become wise. One of his most famous examples was Cesare Borgia. Cesare was admired and loved by many when his power was rising. But when fortune turned, most of those same allies abandoned him without hesitation. Machiavelli didn't blame them entirely.
He blamed Cesare for trusting affection more than strategic loyalty. If you build alliances only on love, you build them on sand. If you build them on power and clear mutual benefit, you build them on stone. Modern psychology echoes this idea through the concept of transactional relationships. Many social bonds, especially in work, politics, or survival situations, are based not on deep emotional ties, but on perceived value and mutual gain. When one side stops benefiting, loyalty fades. Machiavelli advised rulers to bind people not through empty kindness, but through networks of shared interest and respect. People remain loyal when betraying you costs them more than staying by your side. He understood that it's better to be in a position where others need you than where you need them. This lesson also applies outside politics. In everyday life, kind people often give too much and expect the same in return. But the world doesn't work that way. People admire generosity, but they follow strength and clarity. When kindness is not balanced with boundaries, it breeds entitlement, not loyalty. Consider workplaces where a kind, generous person constantly helps others but never sets limits. When they finally need help, those same people disappear. Why? Because the loyalty was never built on strength, it was built on convenience. Machiavelli would say, don't build your life on people's gratitude. Gratitude fades. Build it on respect, clear boundaries, and mutual benefit. That's how loyalty becomes more durable. Literature illustrates this well. In Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare, Caesar trusts the love and loyalty of his friends, but when the political winds shift, they turn on him. Brutus, the one he trusted most, stabs him. Et tu, Brute is not just a cry of pain, it's the moment Caesar realizes love without strategic loyalty is meaningless. Machiavelli studied these patterns again and again. He saw them not as exceptions, but as the rule. Even in modern leadership research, experts talk about the loyalty gap, the difference between how loyal people appear and how loyal they are when real pressure comes. People can adore you when times are easy, but true loyalty is tested in crisis. Machiavelli believed you should always prepare for betrayal, not because you expect the worst of people, but because you understand how humans work. If betrayal never comes, good. If it does, you're not destroyed by surprise. He warned rulers never to rely on affection alone. Love can turn to hatred faster than fear turns to courage. People can admire you today and conspire against you tomorrow. But if they respect you or depend on your power, they will think twice before turning on you. This does not mean becoming cruel or paranoid. It means learning to build relationships with strength and strategy. Reward loyalty, but never be blind to its conditions. Know what people want, why they stay, and what could make them leave. Machiavelli also believed in controlled fear, not terror, but the kind of respect that makes betrayal feel dangerous. When people fear disappointing you more than they desire betraying you, your alliances hold longer. Fear creates caution. Love creates comfort. And comfort can be dangerous. Even philosophers like Thomas Hobbes echoed this in Leviathan. Hobbes believed human beings act out of self-preservation and interest. He argued that peace and loyalty exist not because of moral purity, but because people fear the consequences of breaking order. Machiavelli would have nodded in agreement. This doesn't mean real love or friendship is impossible, but it means smart people know the difference between emotional loyalty and strategic loyalty. The first is fragile. The second can be built and maintained. That's why great leaders in history and today often balance kindness with power. They inspire loyalty through respect, not just affection. For good people, this lesson is crucial. It means stop expecting loyalty just because you are kind. Start understanding why people stay close to you and make sure your position is strong enough that betrayal is a loss for them too. That's not cruelty, that's survival. In a world where alliances shift, this understanding protects your heart, your power, and your future. Machiavelli wanted people to stop being surprised by betrayal and start preparing for it, not with bitterness, but with clarity. If love is your only shield, one act of betrayal can destroy you. But if respect and strategy hold your structure, even betrayal can't bring you down. Machiavelli's final lesson is about power, morality, and survival. Many see Niccolò Machiavelli as a symbol of manipulation, cruelty, and cold ambition, but that is a shallow reading of The Prince. He was not glorifying cruelty, he was exposing the raw structure beneath society's surface. He saw the world not as it should be, but as it is. And in that world, those who refuse to understand power are consumed by it. Those who ignore how people truly act are used by those who don't. For Machiavelli, the greatest tragedy wasn't evil, it was good people being destroyed because they didn't know the rules of the game they were playing. He believed virtue and strategy can coexist, but only when virtue is strong, not naive. He saw goodness without strength as a lamb among wolves, but when goodness is paired with power, it becomes unstoppable. One of his most powerful ideas is that morality should serve survival, not weaken it. He argued that leaders must be willing to act against their moral instincts when necessary, not because they are monsters, but because the world sometimes forces hard choices. A kind heart is noble, but a kind heart without a sharp mind becomes a target. He believed that those who cling blindly to ideals in a brutal world are often crushed beneath it, while those who adapt can preserve their ideals and protect others. This is why Machiavelli admired cunning rulers, not because they were cruel, but because they survived long enough to shape the world. If good people want to protect what is good, they must be willing to be strategic. They must learn to understand human nature, control their image, adapt to change, and build loyalty on respect, not just love. He believed it's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But the ideal leader in his eyes inspires both. Loved enough to gather loyalty, feared enough to prevent betrayal. Power isn't inherently evil, it's neutral. It becomes good or bad depending on who wields it. And when good people reject power, bad people take it. That is the truth Machiavelli wanted us to face. It is a dangerous illusion to believe that kindness alone will protect you. History is full of kind people destroyed by sharper minds. But history is also full of strong, wise, and cunning leaders who used power to protect their people and shape a better world. Machiavelli's message is not to abandon your soul, it's to armor it. To make sure your goodness isn't a weakness, but a force that stands unbroken. The world rewards those who know how it works. It punishes those who pretend it's fair. That is why he wrote, "Men forget the death of their father more easily than the loss of their patrimony." It's a cold statement, but it reflects reality. People act from self-interest, and the sooner you accept this, the harder you become to manipulate. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster." Machiavelli would agree. Strength without control becomes tyranny, but goodness without strength becomes prey. The balance lies in mastering both. Modern psychology, leadership science, and political theory all echo this today. Soft hearts need hard boundaries. Empathy must walk with clarity. Morality must be guarded by strategy. Power and goodness are not enemies, they're allies, if you learn to make them work together. The truly dangerous are not the cruel, they are the naive because they unknowingly allow cruelty to win. If the good don't claim power, the ruthless will. So learn the rules, not to become like the cruel, but to protect yourself and those you love from being crushed by them. Machiavelli's lessons are not just for rulers, they are for anyone navigating a complex, unpredictable world. Understand human nature, master perception, adapt to change, build loyal alliances with strength, inspire respect, and above all, protect your goodness with strategy. Power is not the enemy, weakness is. The world may not reward pure hearts, but it respects sharp minds. Be both. That is how you survive. That is how you lead. And that is how you win. Not by abandoning your light, but by learning how to make it unbreakable.